available, and it feels like the wrong offseason to be looking for an offensive-minded head coach. Joe, how about you? What do you think?
Well, I think there's always been some what if kind of conjecture to whether or not the Bills would be different had they gone into this whole thing with an offensive-minded head coach to pair with Josh Allen without the risk of that coach then turning around and leaving as soon as they start to have success, like what happened with Brian Daboll. Because as we all know, it completely changed after Brian Daboll left as the offensive coordinator, and that is a problem that, these teams like with McVay, like with Ben Johnson, and all of these others offensive-minded head coaches, they don't have to deal with any of that. If they lose a defensive coordinator, sure, whatever. Go find another defensive coordinator. It might take you a little while, but you still have that offensive mind and quarterback paired in place. So that's why, to me, when you always think about the what if, had they gone in a different direction than Sean McDermott, it comes back to an offensive mind and pairing that with Allen. And I think this would be a very compelling job for any of those bright, young offensive minds, or maybe even not young, established offensive minds, to be with that player for the rest of his prime potentially and try and win a Super Bowl out of it. It is the easiest go button possible for any of these coaching candidates. And now it's just a matter of what the Bills want more than anything. Do they want experience? Do they want offensive creativity? Do they want someone who can control a building? Or do they want someone with familiarity with Josh Allen? I think there's a lot of different avenues they can go down.
Yeah, they just got to make sure that they find an admiral guy.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there.
All right,
I was waiting for them to catch on to it.
I didn't think there was any reaction. I was like, oh no, did I screw this up? All right, we will be right back on the TV side of things. All right, everybody is going to get a candidate now, and we have plenty of time in the second half hour to answer questions about specific candidates and give initial thoughts. Give me a candidate you think is a possibility for the Buffalo Bills.
I think it's easy. I think it's Brian Daboll. Listen, the Western New Yorker, you bring him home, you hitch the wagon back onto the horse here. He's big time responsible for the development of Josh Allen. Like I said in the last block, I really think this next head coach of the Buffalo Bills is going to have an important relationship with Josh Allen to continually get the best out of him, but also make sure your franchise quarterback is healthy so that when his big mega contract might be up in a couple years, he decides to stay with Buffalo should they never win a Super Bowl, so he can try to go finish his career out here. It's a long-term way of viewing it, but I think Brian Daboll, and the way he has proven himself as an offensive-minded head coach and an offensive coordinator back with the Bills, the familiarity he also brings back into the locker room as well will be important. I'll take Brian Daboll.
Yeah, and Brian Daboll has a phenomenal relationship with Josh Allen, so I do think that matters. I don't think that needs to be everything, but Josh Allen's most impressive years were with Brian Daboll as their offensive coordinator. Okay, so there's the Brian Daboll answer. Howard, how about you? Give me somebody you like.
I'll go Clint Kubiak for a few different reasons. One, he's done a tremendous job with Sam Darnold this year and what Seattle did offensively. A lot of people talk about coaching trees, right? You want to get a guy off the right coaching tree. The Kyle Shanahan coaching tree and the Sean McVay coaching trees are hot, but he's got one and one other guy. He was on the Shanahan staff in San Francisco as the passing game coordinator, so he's worked with him. Before that, he was the quarterback coach in Minnesota. At the time, Mike Zimmer was the head coach, but the offensive coordinator is Kevin Stefanski, who was a hot name on the market before he took the job. So I like him. He's had offensive success this year. He's been around two guys that you would look at and say are two of the more solid, really good, forward-thinking offensive minds.
Yeah, I think Clint Kubiak, a lot of people think that's probably the slam dunk hire for the Bills, if he would be the one that they'd hire. 38 years old, has never been a head coach, so there are some questions. I don't think that should scare them away. Joe, how about you?
Well, I'm going to go with a curveball here and go with Davis Webb, the Broncos passing game coordinator and quarterbacks coach. And while you think, yes, that would be a giant jump, there is some background here because Davis Webb was in the quarterback room with Josh Allen for 3 years, from 2009 through 2021, and they developed a very strong relationship. Davis Webb, to the point where He, even before the Broncos game, was pretty well received by a lot of people within the Bills organization that are still there. So there is that piece to it. Impressive young offensive mind. He is a rising star in the coaching community. It's only a matter of time before he gets some kind of promotion, and I'm thinking it's going to happen this offseason. But we've also seen instances where people that have been positional coaches have made the jump to a head coach, and it's worked out just fine. So Davis Webb, being young, knowing how to attack the game, this type of game, and also having the success of building Bo Nix into becoming a player that could push his team into the AFC Championship game when no one thought much of Bo Nix when he was coming out of Auburn a couple of years ago. So Davis Webb, to me, is a strong candidate. And I also want to just put this on people's radar. Davis Webb was also in Buffalo when Brian Daboll was there. And Davis Webb also went to the Giants after Brian Daboll left to go be on their roster. So there is a relationship there. If the Bills go out of house and don't go Joe Brady, which I think might agitate some fans to go with Joe Brady, if they don't do that and they still want familiarity, pairing Davis Webb with Brian Daboll in some way, whoever's the head coach, whoever's the offensive coordinator, I think makes a ton of sense to be able to get the Bills to accomplish all of their potential goals in this head coaching search.
Okay, I agree with all of that, and I really like that point. This is going to be the final point I make, then we'll start to answer questions. Not Mike Tomlin. There will be people who go, Mike Tomlin is the answer. He is absolutely not the answer. Mike Tomlin is a more conservative Sean McDermott with a worse track record in the last decade. I do not think Mike Tomlin is a bad coach, but I do not think he is the fit in Buffalo. I think that would be a terrible idea. I think that would be a disaster. I think that would be another 7 seasons of what we just saw with probably worse outcomes. Do not do that. I know he's the biggest name out there. Do not hire Mike Tomlin. It does not make any sense.